So in this Insight tutorial video I'm going to be showing you how to set up a very basic 2-loop Tactis configuration. So firstly we open up the LE2 Explorer software. Now this can take up to 15 seconds or so to fully open up, so don't double click, just wait until you see the icon at the bottom. If you do double click you'll get multiple versions of the application running, and that can cause you problems when you're trying to come to the panel. Okay, so in this case, if your license is outrun, or run out should I say, you will need to basically verify it and go back online and get an update and an extension to your license. I'm going to cancel this for the purposes of this tutorial. You'll then be shown this screen, which is basically the open network file. It's asking you if you want to open a file, connect to a panel, or create a new file. So we're going to create a new file, and in this case I'm going to call it demo 2-loop quick guide, and then say save. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is add a panel. So I can either double click and it will ask me if I want to add a loop card to the panel. I'm going to say yes, 2 loops, and then say save, and you can see I have a node 1 panel sitting here. If I make sure that the site is still highlighted, I can also add a panel this way with the new wizard. When I open that up, it asks me what type panel. At the moment it's only Tactis, so I'm just going to go Tactis AU. It's a Hochiki protocol panel. It's got 2 loops. I'm going to give it a name of, let's say, main FIP, and then you can give it a service provider name. So for service, actually let's go for great service called Insight Fire. And say next. Gives us a choice for the default ringing mode. Typically that's always common in the Australian market. We say next. There's our summary. It then asks us where we would like to return to when it closes the screen. We'll say Loop Explorer, and you can now, we'll ask us if we want to add another board. We just say save to that, and you'll see there's 2 panels here now, node 1 and node 2. So I'm going to, just for the purposes of this video, delete node 1. Okay, so node 1 is now deleted, and we've just got a 2-loop panel. And so the next thing I need to do is expand this panel and go to the loop, and you can see it opens up the icon bar for the devices. So we can use these filters. So if I want to add detectors, I can just go to detectors. I'm going to double click and double click, and it will add the detectors at the next available address on the loop that I have selected over in this window. Or if I wanted, I could add it in a different format. If I was adding multiple ones, I might highlight the loop, go to new wizard, select the device that I want to add, select the node and the loop that's going on, the address that they will start from. Let's go from address 5 for this purpose. I might say they're all going into zone 2. Quantity, I might say I'm going to add 5 of them. They're all going to be called warehouse 1. Oops. Warehouse 1. And then I can select whether they're fitted or not fitted. If I select fitted, if they're not attached to the loop, the panel will show a disconnected fault. If I select not fitted, and the detectors are not attached to the loop, it will not show up on the panel as a fault condition. I'm going to say add, close it, and you can see here these are the 2 that we added by the icons at the bottom, and these are the 5 that we added using the wizard. Okay, so next thing is we need to text our devices, etc, etc. So I can go to quick config. In here I can see I can change the zoning as I want. Then I could do the text if I wish as well, and copy and paste working here, and once I'm done I can just go back to my config screen. So the next thing I might be doing if I was setting up a small panel is right clicking my panel and editing the panel details. So in here we can change the name as we did earlier, or change the panel text. We can also ensure that the resound for fire in same zone is done. Certainly in the Australian market we always have that checked. We can set up our sounder circuits. There's 4 on Tactis, 1, 2, 3 and 4. We can set them up as spurs or 2 loops, which effectively will then have some redundancy. This is where we can set the hotel mode or the alarm acknowledgement feature of the panel, and I'm going to save these settings as they currently are. Okay, so the next thing I might do is set up the call point on the front of the panel. So I open up or expand the node, go to my panel IOs and expand that, and the call point is typically wired into programmable input number 1 by default. So we're going to say main FIP break class. Okay, I'm going to say bypasses all outputs. I change it from transparent to fire, very important that. And then we go to latching and then say save. Okay, so there it is set up. The next thing I might do is my general disablement output for my ASC, and that's always done from Tactis from the alarm contact typically. It's the only one that can by default be set up as a general disablement, as this note here suggests. If we untick all of these, including the silenceable, this now becomes a general disable output, typically to ASE. I'm going to say save. Okay, so that's our output set. Now our fire contact is typically the one that's going to the brigade, and if I double check, it's been set up as default ring mode and it's not silenceable. So effectively when we set the silence the panel on the front, it will not reset until we press the reset button, GFA to ASC typically. I'm going to say save. Okay, right, so that's them bits done. The next thing I might do is I might have some outputs that are going to be shutting down my mechanical cabinets. So I'm going to say, let's say a CHQ DRC, I'll double click and it's added it at address 3 there. So these outputs, if I have a look at that in the left hand window, there's my 2 outputs and my 1 input. So it might be that these are going to be basically the mech board shutdowns, and I might want to ensure that these will be disabled when I press the plant disable all plant outputs in the disablement menu of the Tactis, that these are isolated. To do that, I ensure that this has been ticked, and I might also say that this is going to be included in zonal disablements. So I might tick that box and then say save. And if this was also one, I would double click again. I would then say this is a plant control output and I want it to be included in any zonal disablements. Okay, so that's that done. Now we may also have some inputs coming back from, let's say, a valve monitor and a flow switch. So let's add a PCM by double clicking. It gets added to the next available address. If I ever need to change any of these because it's the wrong address, I can right click, go down to device options and then change address, and in there I can select the address that it's now going to be. Okay, and there it is at address 10. Okay, so I now need to set up these inputs. So the first one might be our flow switch. which is a fire type event, so we make sure it's fire. It's going to bypass any output delays. It'll be latching typically, and then you'd set your zoning if there's any zoning that you want to. Maybe they're all going to go into all your flow switches, maybe into 500 or something like that. So save, and then the second one might be a valve monitor alarm. So the valve monitor alarm, depending on what state you're in, you might require it to be an audible fire event on the panel, or maybe just a fault type event. If it's a fault type event, that's going to operate a let's say the ASE input number 2, then you can either use fault or one of these others. Typically we can use the technical alarm, and that will come up in the other events tab on the front of the fire panel. So in this case, let's go and use the tech alarms flag. So I'm just going to put only here VMA input, and then say save. Obviously we make it latching and bypass any output delays, and then say save. Okay, so if you remember correct, we set up the fire one as a fire condition, so it has the input action of fire. So I'm going to set up now my relay that goes to my brigade for fire, which is, if you remember right, the fire contact, and by default it had the default ring mode ticked. So this output will operate by any input, no matter what the input is, if it has been selected as a fire type input, which our flow switch has been. So that's already done, so we don't need to create cause and effects for that. Also, if we then look at the let's say relay number 1, which is one we're going to now program to be our VMA output to our brigade. So VMA output to ASE IP2 input 2. Okay, so in this case we're going to use this, but if you remember right, the VMA input we checked as a tech alarm. So if I tick that box there, it means that this output will be operated by any input that's got the tech alarm selected. So if I set all of my VMAs to tech alarm, then it will come up on the panel in the other events. It will operate that relay, but it won't set the bells off. Obviously if you require that to be different, then you give the VMA input a different type of event, a fire or an evac, or maybe a fault condition or something. Okay, or indeed you can create a whole cause and effects to do a fire type event. Well, that's a quick way to do it if it's on a small site. So that gives you a brief overview on how to set up a small, simple 2-loop type configuration within the Loop Explorer 2 configuration software. For further information on our other videos regarding Tactis and the other product ranges of Insight, don't forget to check out the website, which can be found at www.insightfire.com.au.